Preston Guy, TigerBait.com, joins us now on the Jim's Firearms Hotline. Preston, happy Friday to you. How are you?
How's it going?
Going quite well. Let's talk some wide receivers. I'll leave it open to you. Anything that stood out the first 2 weeks of spring out wide?
Yeah, I mean, that's a stacked room. Certainly the noticeable talent difference from this year to last year is there. Aaron Anderson, of course, looks good, and he's probably your best receiver from a year ago. I know some people will sit there and say Kyron Lacy, but I think Aaron Anderson was your best receiver most consistently last year. And, it's not even a surefire thing that he'll be your number one this year, Nick Anderson, they're slowly working him out there. I think that, maybe that's to be expected given he's coming off a, major injury and you have a stacked room outside him. But Barion Brown looks really good as well. I mean, Xavion Thomas, they're working him in there in a lot of interesting ways. And, to complement the receiver room, you've got two very good receiving threats at tight end. So I think that your receiving options for Nussmeier, even despite losing Mason Taylor, which I'm not saying that either one of the new tight ends are going to be the complete player that Mason Taylor was, but I do think Trey'Dez Green is a little bit better of a receiver. I think it's a really good room we're looking at there.
Yeah, I mentioned, and this kind of dovetails both those two together, I mentioned on the show earlier this week, and then I wrote a column today that talked about the tight end production, how I think it's not going to take a drop with the combined effort of Trey'Dez Green and Bauer Sharp into what Mason Taylor brought LSU last year. And part of the reason I like the tight ends is because when you add Barion Brown, hopefully a healthy Chris Hilton, and Nick Anderson to the wide receiving core, you've got more deep threats, which I think relaxes the defense and will allow those tight ends to do a little bit more efficient work than that crammed-in offense of last year, right?
Yeah, and look, I'm glad you mentioned Chris Hilton because I didn't even forget. I forgot to mention him completely. Hunt, one day people are going to believe us when we talk about the legend of practice Chris Hilton.
I know.
Like, he's so good. He's so good at practice in meaningless bowl games. It's unbelievable. He actually probably looks like your best receiver out there. In fact, I don't know if you remember on one of the Saturday practices, he absolutely leaped over one of the defenders. I want to say it was Jakeem Jackson for an best grab of practice. No contest. So, yeah, no, definitely deep room. And I definitely like your angle you're taking there between Bauer Sharp and between Trey'Dez Green. They'll be able to provide what you got out of Mason Taylor. Of course, they're probably going to run a lot more 12 formation. That means two tight ends out there. The other thing is they're looking to get crafty at tight end as well. I've noticed a lot of just interesting little, reverses and little bubble screens that they're setting up. Just creative ways to implement those two into the passing game.
You mentioned that 12 personnel. Do you like it?
I do like it, particularly if it can be used, if you have one that can be used dynamically to help with the run game, right? I think that's a certain bit of physicality that LSU lacked last year. That being said, look, if you're opening up after a kickoff and every formation is 12 formation on your own 25-yard line, I think your offense needs to get a little more dynamic. I mean, you have more than three receivers you can roll out there. Let's make sure we're not using, two tight ends on the field when you're looking to spread them out and get aerial. Like, let's put Barion Brown, Aaron Anderson, Nick Anderson, and healthy practice Chris Hilton out there and see what you get. I think that's the thing I don't like about the 12 formation is if it becomes the dominating unit of your offense and you're keeping talented receivers on the bench because of how much you like them.
We talk about system players that are only productive because they've been plugged into this system. What about the inverse of that? Guys who weren't as successful because the systems they were in were so bad. And I think about Barion Brown and Bauer Sharp last year and two of the worst passing offense quite literally in Division I, specifically the SEC. Do you think that there's more that LSU can and will unlock with those two guys now that you've got a functional quarterback and system that I think I looked this up correctly. LSU's thrown for more yards per game than anybody in the country the last 2 years.
Is that real? Well, I mean, I guess Jaden Daniels is probably doing a lot of
he's part of that.
with it. Yeah, so, I mean, that checks out. But, Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, Bauer Sharp, by the way, didn't put up a bad season for OU. I think I remember looking at about 650 yards. It's obviously been a couple months since I looked at those stats, but in that offense, I mean, that's pretty impressive. Now, I'll say this. I think where he's going to be limited is he's going to have to, they're going to have to share the wealth with him and Tradez. And I don't think Tradez is going to be your second target at tight end. There's a few other players that come to mind when you mention that. Is it fair to go to the defensive side of the ball? Or is that
sure, fire away.
The one I'm hoping that fits that description is Jack Pyburn. He looks really physically sharp out there at edge. And I'm hoping, that was the guy where he came in and said, I really like his film. I don't know where he's going to play, but that guy lowers the shoulder. He plays physical. He makes plays even when his name isn't getting called out. He's the one who took on that blocker, and I think he had 40-some-odd tackles. Nothing that really exploded on paper a year ago. I'm really hoping that a position swap for him. And look, receiver's a really good room. Edge rusher might be your one other room that's actually better than receiver. I'm really hoping that a position swap for him will really make his impact be noticed more on paper, not just, on film.
And I can't vouch for this for sure. I don't have the statistics in front of me, and certainly I'm not going to go back and watch every Florida snap from last year. But based on some of the guys that have come on from Florida that have talked on this radio station since Pyburn came over, they took him off the field on third downs a lot last year. Now, whether that's because maybe that's because they've seen him in practice and he doesn't rush the passer well at all. Or what we can't be argued is it doesn't appear that he was given a chance to really rush the passer last year. So hopefully, because Kevin Peoples' expertise there, he unlocks another level to his game, and that's where it shows up statistically.
Yeah, that's kind of the hope there. Now, look, I could be dead wrong, and maybe Florida had him build the right. It's really hard to tell until you get a really good. We'll get an open practice where we get a decent look, but. It's one of those things, position swaps, new coach, all that good stuff. It's really difficult to truly project, at least from a media standpoint, with what we get to see until you line up against somebody. That's why we need Coach Prime to make spring games, intramural spring games a thing.
Coach Prime just got a new contract that's quite lucrative, so I think he can probably help with you with a number of different things. Last one here, Preston. We appreciate some time. Just big picture on the offensive line. Josh Thompson is now back. Well, not back. He's here. And then you see some shuffling at center when we were watching 11 on 11. So how do you feel about the way that's shaking out right now?
Yeah, a lot of movement on that offensive line. In fact, we've seen Josh Thompson out there at right tackle. Mostly, I haven't actually seen him play much guard at all. I don't know if you've seen something different there, but that caught me off guard. But it's very clear to me that the offensive line is an experiment right now, and they're just looking to kind of see what unit gels the most. This actually kind of reminds me of, remember 2022, we had no earthly clue who was going to roll out there and be the offensive line, and then you look up in game one, it's Will Campbell, a true freshman at left tackle. That's kind of reminiscent of where we're at, where it's like they are looking to shuffle a lot of guys, give them different looks at different spots, and see, because it's not just how good you are at your position, it's also how well you play with the guy next to you that matters so much there.
No question about it. I think he'll be off for spring break next week, but we'll still be talking. Spring football continues here in a couple of weeks. You can check it all out at tigerbait.com. Preston, Mike, the whole crew do a great job. And Preston's with us on Fridays. Have a great weekend, man.
All right, Hunt, take it easy on spring break.
I'll do my best. It's Preston Guy, tigerbait.com. Hey, thanks for watching Hunt on LSU. Before you get out of here, do us a couple of favors. Hit that like button, leave your comments below, and subscribe to the channel for all your Fighting Tiger football talk. See you next time.